On today's special edition of World Insight, she, the faces many can't forget.
My vision was to see every girl in school.
Of strength and determination.
And planting a seed in their heart, and maybe one day it will grow.
Of power and persuasion.
In that one moment, we communicated with each other in a language that purely predates human words.
The voices of women, the forces of change. Here is our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight. I'm Tian Wei in Beijing. On October the 1st, the United Nations held a high-level meeting on the 25th anniversary of the 4th Women's Conference in Beijing. The outcome of the 1995 conference, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, remains the key global agenda for gender equity. Despite challenges in the last quarter century, committed nations have shown that change is possible. But progress for women in many areas has been unacceptably slow. Worse, the COVID-19 pandemic threatens to reverse many of the hard-won advances. More action is needed. So today, we bring you a special edition of conversation I had over the years with women who devoted their lives to change this world. First, let's meet her. Malala, many people called her first name, an ordinary Pakistani girl who won respect and admiration around the world. When the Taliban took control of her hometown in Pakistan, she spoke out, refused to be silenced, and fought for her right to an education. The UN declared Malala Day in her honor, and Time magazine named her one of the most influential people in the world. At the age of 17, she was already announced as co-recipient of the 2014 Nobel Peace Prize for her struggle against the suppression of children and the youth and for championing their right to education. Our conversation is her first interview with Chinese media. Malala talked about her plans to help female dropouts around the world to return to school. She also shared how she was forced out of school, something she hoped no other girls in the world like her have to endure. Take a listen. Malala, welcome to CGTN.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Wonderful to see you finally. Now your life has changed from nobody knows to everybody knows. That's a huge transition. How do you see this transition?
To me, I'm just the old Malala as I was before. The world might know me or not, but I haven't changed. I'm just still the
Okay,
same.
so use a few adjectives. What is that, the norm, Malala?
How do I describe myself? I don't know, just like I am an activist for girls' education and for women's empowerment. I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I have a family, I have friends, and I'm just part of this world where I want a better world for everyone. And I'm focusing especially on girls, and I hope that people and girls in China, in other countries I know that they're following my story, but I also hope that they also stand up for their rights and speak out. So I'm focused on the education of all girls all around the world, and there are more than 130 million girls who are out of school. So I have been making trips to Nigeria, to Mexico, to Lebanon, to Jordan, and I have been traveling around the world to make sure that we can reach out to all girls who are out of school. And so even though I have been away from Pakistan, unfortunately, and I want to go back, but it has not stopped me from my fight for education, and I continue my work.
Before, it's about you, Malala, that you fight a cause on your own, but now you have to work with everybody, bring in all the players, governments, businesses, and different societies with different cultures. How is that likely to be done? What have you learned?
Yes, I have good experience in working with all these sectors, from government to business to NGOs, to then working on ground and meeting young girls and activists. And I think the important thing is that we all have to work together. It's not the job of one person or one community. Business people, they have expertise, they have science, they have skills that they need to invest in girls' education and their empowerment. Government also need to change their policies. They need to increase their funding towards girls' education. NGOs, they also need to come together and exchange and share what they have learned and how they can improve their work. And also we need to go and reach out to young girls and support them in their empowerment, and also that they can get quality education.
Determined to continue her campaign for girls' education, Malala and Ziauddin set up the Malala Fund in 2013. The organization champions every girl's right to 12 years of free, safe, quality education. They believe girls are the best investment in securing peace and prosperity in the world. The Malala Fund works in regions where most girls miss out on secondary education, such as Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Nigeria, and countries housing Syrian refugees. Over the years, Malala has met with girls around the world, carrying her message of girls' education and equality.
When I heard her story, I hoped to be like her, or at least do a little of what she was able to do.
So I started Malala Fund 5 years ago, and my vision was to see every girl in school. Simple, all girls in school, whether the girls are in China or India or in Mexico or in Africa, everywhere we want to see girls getting quality education, because when we empower girls, they become empowered women, and then they contribute to the economy, then they contribute to the society. So right now we are focusing on empowering local advocates, local champions in their work for education. So for example, in Afghanistan, we are supporting a project where they are training female teachers, so that girls can go to school where there are female teachers rather than male teachers. In Lebanon, we are supporting e-learning skills. We are supporting, we're making sure that girls can have access to STEM skills as well. So we are looking at area what the problem is and how can we address the problem, how can we solve that problem, so that girls can have access to quality education.
But then the question is how? Isn't that?
So we are supporting local partners. We are giving them grants, we are giving them support. We are also helping them in their advocacy. So we are doing advocacy in the countries, we are doing advocacy globally as well.
Have you met some of the girls that your cause is supporting?
Definitely.
Just a week ago.
So just a week ago I was in Lebanon, and I visited one of my projects that we are supporting, and we were in this room of 12 girls, and they were all Syrian refugees, and I asked those girls what their dreams were, and one girl said she wants to become an architect. And when I asked why, she said she decided to become an architect because on the day when she left her country, Syria, she saw her country devastated and destroyed. And that day she decided that one day she will become an architect so she can rebuild her country. So now girls like her are receiving education, they're receiving education through digital learning, so we are making it easier for them to have quality education. I am in touch with girls, I meet them, I visit these schools that we are supporting, and it's just amazing to see how education can change the lives of girls. Education gives them hope.
So I guess going there, meeting those girls, in a way also reminds you of your life in the past.
Definitely, when the girls were talking about how they saw wars and conflicts in their region and they had to leave their home, it was not their choice. They had no other option. And it just reminded me of my time in South Valley when there was terrorism happening, when girls' education was banned, when more than 400 schools were destroyed, and we had to leave our valley for 3 months. And that feeling that when you don't know when you would go back to your home is the worst time of your life.
Malala faced countless dangers in pursuit of her advocacy. Death threats against her were published in newspapers and slipped under her door. On Facebook, she received threats and fake profiles were created under her name. When none of this worked, a Taliban spokesman said they were forced to act. On October 9, 2012, a Taliban gunman shot her in the head, neck, and shoulder while on a bus in an attempt to silence her. Even though she was seriously injured, she survived. She was in critical condition as she was transported to the UK for treatment. She had multiple surgeries and she went through months of rehabilitation. People in Pakistan and around the world prayed for her recovery. The 10 militants involved in her attack were sentenced to prison, but Malala said she had already forgiven them.
To be honest, I don't think back. I don't think about those people.
You don't want to think back? Or
I don't want to think back.
Or not necessary?
I think what's important is that you just look forward, and I think I just wish that they can learn about about humanity, they can learn about the true message of Islam, they can learn that it is always wrong to harm anyone, and they learn the importance of education, that education is important for their daughters, for their sisters as well. And I had forgiven them long ago, and I still say I forgive them, and I just do not think back.
You've forgiven them already?
Yes.
What does it take to forgive?
I just, when I was recovering from that attack, I think I became stronger, and I realized that I was standing up for a cause that was so important that this was just a second life, and I dedicated this life to girls' education. I said I'll just fight for education throughout my life now. So I just don't think back, and I don't think about the attack, and I just feel like it just never happened. I just ignored for a second that it just never happened.
Because it will make you more comfortable, or?
I think I just look forward, never look back. But then when I go and I meet girls in refugee camps, and when they tell me their stories, then it just reminds me of my past.
So what are some of the things that you could share with us when it comes to the adjective you use, you know, be brave and be going out there, but it's only adjective. When it comes to actions, it's not easy.
I know it's hard. I know it's challenging. I don't say it's easy, but I think if you stop, then that's even harder. If you stop, because
I love that.
I always say that some people ask me, like, why did you start speaking out? Like, it was hard, it was challenging, and I said it was even harder to live in that situation and not speak out. How could you live in terrorism? How could you live in a place where there are these people with guns and targeting people, destroying schools and banning girls from education, banning women from going outside the houses? Like, how could you imagine your life for a second in that? And I thought I would put my life at risk, but I'll speak out. Because I just cannot live in this situation. This is even worse.
It's a great point, I think.
So if women want to see change, they have to speak out.
And they have to stick to it.
They have to stick to it, and they have to be brave. And I really appreciate seeing these movements around the world when women are speaking out and raising their voice against sexual harassment, or speaking out about all the violence that they face. And women have to be brave. But also we need changes in the law, responsibility from the governments as well. So everyone has to play a role in this. It's not just one person's job, but I think women also have to stay brave in this.
But you know, Malala, you know, many women would say, I respect you, Malala, but at the same time, I don't want to have a fighting life as you do. What would you say to those women?
I think advocacy and campaigning does not really mean that you come out on the streets every day. It's the small steps that you take. For example, you make sure that your daughter is safe and protected, and she gets safe and quality education. You make sure that you take care of your health. You make sure that you get equal pay as men. You make sure that you are not sexually harassed. You make sure that you have equal rights as anyone else. This is not activism that you are on the streets every day and you are, I don't know, doing protests. That is also important at some point, but I think the activism that I talk about, the change that I want to talk about, is the everyday things that you do. What do you teach your children? What do you teach your friends? How do you interact? And when you see that there is some kind of discrimination happening against women, do you speak out or not?
I can tell you have a lot in your mind and a lot of work to do. Hopefully we could all join you. So thank you so much for joining us, and all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.